Hello, happy Monday. I am going to get us set up so I can see who's chatting. I see we already have people here. But I know that there might be a commercial, so if you're seeing me, say hello so I know that you're watching. I'm your host, Marcy Geller. This is the Square Peg Chat, and it is Monday. Happy Monday, everybody. What was I going to say? If you are new to the chat, to the right of my face, you should be seeing, oh, something went wrong. What is it saying? No, not Will. Okay, it's still going. Okay, it says something went wrong, but it says that it's still going, so hopefully we're still broadcasting. To the right of me, you will see two options. There's a chat, and then there's social stream. Use chat, please, because then I can see what you're saying, if you're saying anything. You don't need to have a Ustream membership. You can just come in as anonymous and just announce yourself in the chat bar if you so choose. So I see we've got some viewers, so we're going to dig right in. I'm your host, Marcy Geller. It's Monday, and it was 36 degrees when I woke up this morning. And I mention that because I am working on making peace with cold weather. I will admit, I am not a big cold weather fan. I see you. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Me and cold weather have not been friends throughout the years, but I'm working on this being the year when I can embrace it and embrace warm people so I stay warm and get through this cold weather and be a happy person. I got on my little cute boots and my leggings, so it's all good. So, how is everybody doing? Did you have a fabulous week? I hope you did. I decided that this week's topic was going to be graceful accountability. What if it was my fault? And the reason that I chose that is because if you tuned in last week, it was really a debacle. We had all kinds of technical issues. The feed kept cutting out. The oil burner went on. And, the more things that went wrong, the more, I was trying to stay not flustered, if that makes any sense. So, I see long commercial. Well, all right, I'm going to keep talking for anybody who does see me. Are you seeing me now, or are you still seeing a commercial? Let me know so I know how to gauge this conversation, because your input and dialogue with me is what makes this chat fun and what's making us have lots of people viewing in each week. So, is the commercial over? Co-producer, husband, you can text me if the commercial is still playing or if it's over. I would like to know. I don't see any information, so I'm going to have to continue as if you can see me. Do you see me? This is the only thing I dislike about this chat. I love spending these Mondays with you. It makes the whole week better, and it helps me focus during the week, and it helps me have a really good attitude about Mondays. So I'm hoping that you're seeing this, and we're going to just keep going forward. So, topic tonight is graceful accountability, what if it was my fault? And the reason I came up with this topic was because of last week's debacle. I had so many people viewing and could not seem to get the technology to support me. And it wasn't until after the webcast that I realized that I had set my Wi-Fi to the wrong router, and I had forgotten to turn off the oil burner. So my apologies, and I'm saying it gracefully, and I'm saying it wholeheartedly, because it was my fault. I mean, the fact that the Wi-Fi wasn't working, I can't take, maybe I did create it somehow. So I'm going to take accountability for that. And when I say accountability, once again, I'm not saying it in a judgmental manner. I'm saying it in a way that we can step aside from ego and allow ourselves to take responsibility for how our actions affect others. So does that make sense to you guys? You know, the feed last week, we had technical issues, and I felt really, really bad because so many people had tuned in, number one. And number two, it was really frustrating, not just for me, but for the people who took the time out of their Monday evening where they could be doing any number of things to tune in and share this little half hour with me, and it wasn't working. So I apologize, and I'm interested in how you respond to the topic. I see somebody said, I love the topic. Good. I'm glad that you love the topic. I think that in some ways we are taught to apologize constantly, and in other ways when we really, really do something that affects somebody else, I think that it's very hard to apologize sometimes, and I'm only speaking from my own perspective. Let me think of an example. Well, for a perfect example, somebody's walking through a door and I didn't realize it and I didn't hold the door. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Or, if I need to get past somebody in an aisle at the grocery store, I'm sorry, can I get past you? Why am I apologizing for that? Why am I apologizing in order to ask permission to navigate around this person who I need to get around? That's different than when you really mess up and you don't take responsibility for it, or you misinterpreted something and you don't take responsibility. So here's another example, and I was reminded of it today because I spent the day in Brooklyn, and I was explaining to the person I was driving around why I didn't want to park in this one parking garage, and it was because the last time I parked there, I got into a big argument with the parking attendant. And I had been parking there for 10 years, and, I thought that he was rounding up, like I had arrived a minute after the hour, and he was therefore charging me for 2 hours instead of 1 hour. And I argued, and I argued, and I argued, and I'm like, I'm never coming back here again. I'm never parking again. And I realized afterwards, I was wrong. He was right, I was wrong. And I was looking at the wrong time on the time punch card. So, I thought about what it was in me that made it so uncomfortable that I didn't want to just go right back downstairs and apologize. Well, first of all, because the guy got pretty nasty and heated and I was a little afraid of him. But aside from that, my ego was telling me that I don't want to admit I was wrong. And I want to look at that part of myself. I want to take responsibility for the side of me that has difficulty on occasion taking responsibility for something. So do any of you ever experience that? Do you have something you want to share about this? Does it push a button? Oh, I see a sad face. Why are we sad? Oh, we froze up? Well, I'm still ticking here, so I think we're okay. Are we good now? Bless you. My co-producer's upstairs and I heard him sneeze. Well, I hope that you are seeing this. I'm seeing that it is continuing to record, which tells me it's continuing to broadcast. I'm wondering if anybody watching upstairs, if they're locked into the correct router, because that may affect the way you're seeing me. I'm talking about my producer, my husband, John. He sends me little messages so I know what's going on during this webcast. While we're talking about that kind of stuff, if you look below me down here, you'll see a tip jar, and I'm not expecting to pay off my mortgage by doing this, but I am hoping to someday be able to afford to do a commercial-free broadcast, because it always feels like whenever we get into the meat of a topic, it seems like that's when Ustream decides to put the commercials. And I would love to be able to have really focused time with you guys without worrying about when is the commercial going to break in. Because a lot of times it's in the middle of a song, and that's really annoying because what am I going to do, just keep vamping? But anyway, moving right along. I see that many of you are not seeing me frozen, so give me some feedback. How do you feel about this topic? Is it an uncomfortable topic? Is it something that you relate to? Is it something that you've experienced on your own? Tell me how you feel about graceful apologizing, graceful accountability, taking responsibility for things when maybe you didn't even realize that something you did affected somebody, or maybe you didn't realize that you were wrong. What happens when you find out afterwards? Do you go back and apologize, or do you kind of just let it slide? You know, and I'm guessing that probably depends on what the issue was, maybe. But I'm curious to see from you guys if you're resonating with this. Because I know, as I've talked about in previous web chats that we've done here on this weekly basis, which is lovely, that the whole point of this is not that I am positioning myself as this guru who has answers. I'm continually seeking my own answers, and I arrive at some of them, believe it or not, through the dialogues that I have with you guys. You guys post some really interesting comments and questions, and it makes me dig a lot deeper into my own personal psyche, my own heart, my own soul. And that's always at the heart of what I'm trying to accomplish here, is that I want to find my answers, and maybe you'll find your answers, and maybe they'll be completely different, but maybe we'll walk away feeling a little bit lighter, feeling a little bit brighter, feeling a little bit more in touch with who we are. So I'm going to just keep talking about it. I'm going to say that I think one of the reasons it's hard to, for me personally, to admit when I was wrong is there's a part of my ego that's very type A that is very concerned about being accepted and being loved and making sure I do the right thing, whether it's on behalf of myself or the person that I'm working with. And I sometimes get so caught up in that ideal that the thought of ever doing wrong, it feels like it's going to affect who I am as a person. It's going to affect whether I'm worthy, which is ultimately, I think, the big thing for me. You know, that idea of celebrating and accepting that we are worthy of good things. It's something that's a constant struggle for me. I know in my head that I'm a good person. I try to be a good person. I try to be an honest person. I try to be a giving and generous person. And then I know that there's a part of me that has a lot of doubt that I struggle with. And it goes back really far and really deep to a lot of things that, you know, maybe we'll explore in other episodes of this web chat. But for now, I want to stay focused on this accountability. So, okay, so what can I do to feel more at ease with accountability? Like if I could go back in time and go back down to that garage and apologize and say I realized I was wrong. What's the very worst thing that would have happened? Well, let's assume that he wasn't going to be violent. Let's assume that he was just pissed off because this crazy lady was screaming at him and he knew he was right and she just wasn't getting it. So the very worst thing that could have happened is he could have said, you know, get out of here, you're not welcome anymore. And I would have felt bad. Okay, we've got an ad. So, does anybody not have the advertisement, or does everybody see the ad? Because I'm going to take a quick sip of water to stay hydrated. I'm going to do a little commercial here for Voss. Okay, let's see. Sounds like apologies are based on guilt, and a lot of guilt comes from early religious training. Apologies are just ego-driven. They do not seem particularly mathematical. They are there perhaps to make you feel good and justify your life's circumstances. Wow, that's really deep. Well, here's the interesting thing, and here's my response to that. I wasn't brought up in a religious environment. So for me, the guilt comes from maybe it's more of a social guilt. You know, maybe it's or a better word, maybe it's more of a cultural guilt that I was taught as a young person. because I wasn't brought up in a religious house, and I was brought up in more of a spiritual house, if you can, kind of go with that. We celebrated things, we always had a Christmas tree every year. When I was little, we would go to Passover when my great-grandfather was alive, and he would do the Seders. As a grown-up, as an adult, I've embraced a lot more of the traditions, not necessarily the religious aspects of my culture, my race, which is Jewish. It is a race. I found out I had a big argument with somebody many, many years ago. It's not a race, it's a religion, and I don't practice it, so therefore I'm not Jewish. Well, it turns out I was wrong. It is a race. It comes from a very distinct bloodline. So I'm part of a tribe. What can I say? I never practiced the religion, but I do feel a certain warmth and kinship around some of the holidays. There are many, many holidays, because Lord knows there are a lot of Jewish holidays that I still don't even know what they're about, but the ones that I do, like Passover, or like Rosh Hashanah, we just celebrated with some friends, a friend that I reconnected with from high school, and we went to her family's home, and it was lovely. So I don't know that the religious thing per se has affected, but I don't think that apologies are mathematical for me. When I get to a point where I apologize, it's number one, either because I feel really badly and I do somehow want to make the other person know how sorry I feel, or it's because I was wrong and I need to cop to it, I need to admit I was wrong and be able to get on with my life. And that was the other point I wanted to bring, that with me in particular, when something goes wrong and I realize that something went wrong, I have a very, very difficult time letting go of it. It just ruminates in my brain over and over again. It can last weeks sometimes. And I think for me, part of the reason I wanted to bring this topic into the light here is because I think that when you apologize, it is sort of an act of letting it go. So maybe that's what you're talking about making yourself feel better, making yourself feel good. So maybe there is a component there where you let it go, and so therefore you suddenly feel free of the thing that you were hanging on to that was causing a weight on you. The thing that you felt you didn't feel good about. So does that sort of connect with any of you? I see from my husband that he's having technical difficulties. And honey, did you switch to the extended router instead of the regular one? You don't have to necessarily tell me, but I'm just checking because I think because I'm showing that things are fine and nobody else is saying that they're having problems. So I'm going to assume that we're all good here. That brings me to, if you guys have some more comments, I'm willing to keep talking about it. Otherwise, I want to sort of stray into another little realm that's unrelated to accountability and apologizing and all that kind of stuff. So give me 1 second. It's super dry down here in the studio. Probably because we had to put the heat on for the first time because it was so darn cold. I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to just forge forward. And my little detour is that this Friday is the birth date of one of my very, very, very favorite people in the whole world, and that is my husband, John. And I will make a comma, I don't know if it's a comma or a semicolon, but I'll also mention that one of my dear friends and musical partners' birthday is today, Marshall Rosenberg. Today is his birthday. So, I'm not going to read this well. I can't read you, honey. I'm sorry. So, happy birthday to Marshall. And I wanted to dedicate the last few moments of our web chat to talking about my husband. I've always been the birthday phobic one, and he's always been the one that, the minute October started, it was birthday month. So, October is John DeMorrow birthday month, and he deserves a whole month. He deserves like a decade. He's just probably the finest human being I've ever met. We just celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary in May, and he's still my very, very favorite human being that I've ever met. There are some close seconds, my dad, my parents are still there, and some friends, but I'm sorry, the husband still has the #1 spot. So I wanted to pick a song tonight that I wrote for him and dedicate it to him because he's the grounding force in my life. He's the person that keeps the horizon in my view. You know what I mean? Like he reminds me that there is purpose in things and that I am going to be okay, even if I'm having the worst day ever. So I'm going to dedicate I Just Love You, which is off of the new CD Square Peg. If you guys have it, you can listen to it. I don't remember offhand which track it is. I think it's number 5, but I could be wrong. But you can check for yourself. I wrote this for John because we do tend to spend a lot of distance apart physically because of my little music habit here. I travel a lot because of it, and a lot of times we're physically distant from one another. But no matter how far away, I always feel him in my heart. I always know he's got my back. I always know he's rooting for me wherever I am. So tonight, John DeMauro, the love of my life, I am going to sing I Just Love You for you. And I'm sorry if you're not getting a good broadcast of it because I really want you to hear it, even though you've heard it 1,000 times and you were the engineer who recorded it. I'm going to move this slightly so you can see me at the piano. So this is I Just Love You, and goes like this. Oh, and if you know the ooze, you can sing from wherever you are. There's a space between your last word and my first deep breath. You captured me, I'm a firefly who needs the night to flash. Baby, it's no secret, but it's ours to keep. I finally found the one whose truth runs so deep, and I just love you. If I stumble, you'll steady me, remind me of my wings. Though it means I may fly away and stretch our heartstrings. Baby, it's not simple, that's just not our style. I'll always carry you, no matter the miles, 'cause I just love you. There's a space between your last word and my first deep breath. You captured me, I'm a firefly who needs the night to flash. I love you, honey. Everybody say happy birthday to my baby. Happy birthday, Johnny. And if you don't know, his name is spelled with a G. It's not a John. It's a Gian because he's a lovely hybrid Italian, Irish, French, Native American mutt that I love so dearly. So we are going to be celebrating all week. If you're Facebook friends with my husband, wish him a happy birthday. If you're not Facebook friends with my husband, wish him a happy birthday on my page. Did you picture a guy like John in your mind when you were a kid? That's a really interesting question. In essence, yeah. I think I decided a very long time ago that I was never going to settle for anybody that wasn't as fabulous as him. So, yeah, maybe I did imagine him. You know, maybe I thought he'd be blonde or something. Oh, my husband said he loves me. I love you too, honey. Um, ads, great. Well, I hear there's an ad. For those of you who can still see me, I'm going to keep talking. When I was a kid, first of all, I had a pretty clear vision that I was going to be like a very, very famous rock star or something like that, and I wasn't going to have time for marriage. So I was the last person who ever envisioned getting married. But if you've ever heard me tell the story, I knew the night I met that man, I was like, crap, I'm going to marry this guy. And I knew it instantly. And I think it's because when I was younger, the one thing I'm proud of in myself is that I never settled for somebody who treated me anything less than really well, like as a really good person who cares about me and who respects me. And if they didn't, that was it. I did not need a man in my life. If they were not treating me right, they were gone instantly. So I think I had a very clear idea of the person who I would love so fully. And so I think that the reason I knew the night that I met John that he was the guy I was going to marry was because I think that when I met him, my vision was so clear that I knew I recognized him instantly. And you know, I always reference that wonderful line in the Muppet song that there's not a word yet for old friends who've just met. You know that feeling when you meet somebody for the first time and you can talk for hours and it's like you've known each other for this entire lifetime and maybe other lifetimes before, if you believe in that kind of stuff. Well, that's the feeling that I had with my husband. I mean, I felt like it was kind of not like meeting a new person. It was almost like, oh, hey, how are you? It's good to see you again. Like, that's sort of how it felt. So I consider myself very, 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 very blessed in the love department. It makes up for all the other things I might find fault in my life. And I am very thankful that I have really beautiful friends who love both of us, who love my husband, who adopted him as part of their heart when we met. And I'm so thankful to you, my Johnny. All right, see, he said get all worked up, and I'm trying not to. But you are the most authentic, kind, funny, sweet, talented, amazing human being that has ever graced this planet Earth, and I am so lucky that you picked me to spend your life with. So it looks like we're winding down, guys. It's 30 seconds until the end of our half hour, and I try to keep these half hours tight because I respect your time, and I know that it does take effort to come here each week and share this little space with me, and I appreciate it very much. I wish you all great loves. I hope you found your Johnny, and I hope you'll tune in again next week. I'm not going to tell you what we're going to talk about yet because I haven't decided, but I got a list. And yeah, if you'd like to see this without ads and you want to help the cause, leave a tip. It's right down there. If you're not on my mailing list, please sign it. It's right up there. You'll get a free song. You'll get to get my little e-newsletters, which will tell you what's going on in my world. And we'll get to connect more often. So thank you, thank you, thank you. My name is Marcy Geller. You are tuned into the Square Peg Chat. This has been a lovely half hour, and I hope I see you all next week. Love to you all.